Okay. So, human connection is the single greatest asset, the reason why we're here. All the other stuff is kind of in between, we're literally even built to connect into each other.
Right.
Literally. And so, part of human connection is understanding other people. Right? If you've understood yourself and you know who you are at the core and your strengths, your weaknesses, your interests, your balances that are imbalanced, you have to really now understand other people.
Right.
So, I want to talk a little about to understanding other people.
Perfect.
This is going to be you can call it a course or a lesson or some insight on how to understand their perspective, where they're coming from. Again, my name is Benny.
And I'm Tree.
Tree. So, by the way, I wanted there to be two people in this video because I feel like now there's two perspectives.
Right.
And even maybe a third perspective could have been good as well. But imagine having fucking three. Well, listen, if you're a good kid, and you're lucky, blessed enough to have two parents, you're gonna have two perspectives.
Right.
Right. Going to school, imagine if you had like multiple teachers. So really, when you want to connect with other people, which again is the single greatest reason that we're here, business, relationships, life, money, everything, joy, excitement, it's with connecting with other people. Humans have to connect. So understanding other people.
Sweet.
Or you should write that down at the start, but understanding other people. Number one is going to be
Listening.
listening. Okay. So let's give an example of what listening's like. So let's just say you tell a really brief story about, I don't know, how your day was. Just really brief.
Yeah. Like, oh man, I woke up, had some breakfast. It was a great day, and got to work on time. Everything ran smoothly. But that's a hard.
That's a perfect story.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so a good example of like active listening would be like, okay.
Right. Eye
And
contact.
you should also take a minute before you respond. Not a minute, but like take one breath before you start. So I'll give you an example of bad listening. Bad listening would have been like, oh, you went to work today? Yeah, I went to work too.
Right.
What'd you have? I had breakfast too. What'd you have?
What'd you have? Yeah.
You're trying to like straight away. What am I going to say next? Oh yeah, well I woke up. I had coffee, but like it doesn't.
Right.
You woke up. You had some breakfast. You went to work. So once you finish talking. Okay. Interesting. Now I can dig deeper. When you work, what did you have for breakfast?
Right.
Anything else that happened in between? I can dig deeper. But before I even respond, I want to take one breath. Interesting. And then respond.
Right.
And I'm really, really listening. So, first of all, take a minute before even responding, right? Second of all, you don't need to immediately try and like relate to your story now. Oh, my story time.
Right.
I'm still understanding this person, right? So you told me about work, told me about the story about going to work, having breakfast. So I'm taking a minute to respond. I'm listening, and then I can really sort of, if I want to do active listening, right, I can demonstrate that I'm actually like saying, oh, really, work? Oh, yeah, work. Oh, coffee. Breakfast, okay. Yeah, work, mom, man, you're working today. I can demonstrate active listening and I can nod and da. But like one of the ways is just deleting all of your other devices, your distractions, your ADHD, your whatever. It's honestly a big problem. Like especially when I go out, you go to a party where you meet someone, they're not really listening. They're just like, okay, what's next? Where are we going next?
Yeah.
What do you do? What do you do?
Yeah.
So, distractions, okay, eye contact, leaning in, basic stuff, but you really want to start listening.
Right.
And you'll notice, just catch yourself if you're not listening. If you catch yourself talking over people, thinking about what you're going to say next, try to respond too quick, try to relate everything to you, try to tell them more about your story. You're not really, if you're talking as well, majority of the time,
Right.
even like I am now a little bit,
Yeah.
you need to let them talk. Really like let them be heard, you know?
Yeah. Well, I feel like with this, I feel like we need to build like some sort of picture. You know what I mean? And start from the beginning, like maybe walking up to that person, introducing themselves. You know what I mean? Like starting from the jump, or
The
you know what I
start.
mean? The start. You know what I mean? And kind of like moving our way through, because like listening, yeah, but what are we listening to? You know what I mean? Like to throw in more context, like I guess. You know what I mean? Because I feel like
Okay, so let's go into that more
Mm.
context, right?
yeah,
So,
more context.
number 2, let's do this, right? Let's understand their perspective, right?
Perspective and stuff, yeah.
And understand their past, right? So really, when you're understanding other people, some of their past upbringing, traumas,
Right.
Experiences, did they come from money? Did they come from poverty?
Right.
They come from like a rough neighborhood, rough area. Did they have people beat them up? Were they bullied? Do they have family? Do they even have a father or mother? And do they have siblings?
Right.
Right? Understanding if they're an only child, did they grow up in Asia? Did they grow up in America? Did they grow up in Australia? So when you're understanding other people and you're listening, now you're going to dig into a little bit about their past. Okay, their perspective is their past. So I always like to really just ask about where they went to school and stuff. Like, what were they like in school?
Yeah.
How were they? What happened in school? Any did they ever travel by themselves? But the easy one that I can think of as an example was, I was actually last night. Funny enough, I was with some guys from Compton, and potentially they might be sweethearts, but they may have had some slightly aggressive, slightly gangster type upbringing.
Right.
So their perspective is they had to maybe toughen up a little bit, staunch up a little bit.
And then look around, stare at people. You know what I mean? Look at people in the
just
eye.
cautious. You check them out, let them know that. So that's their perspective, and honestly, that's their reality. But I came in last night with these fairly tough gangsters from
Yeah.
Compton,
Yeah.
potentially part of gangs out there.
Really?
And I almost say which ones they're affiliated with, but
Yeah.
I'm like, yo, what's up, bro?
Yeah. And they were probably
And they're
like,
like, yeah,
Yeah.
and I'm trying to bring them into my reality, which is playful, happy-go-lucky, Aussie. Hey, mate,
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And they're like
I don't know you.
not having it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
So if I want to really understand people and actually connect with people, not just same people as me, the goal is to be able to connect with anybody and to understand that they had maybe they had some stuff, whatever. I don't know what their past was. So now I have to adapt their past, their upbringing. I have to adapt to who they are. So if I understand, these guys may have had some stuff growing up, they had to become these maybe slightly overly masculine, aggressive, whatever. I'm not going to judge them,
Right.
but now I'm coming on their perspective.
Exactly.
All right, bro.
People are the product
Respect.
of their
Respect.
environment.
What was another example of that you had, where you had to
Oh, bro, I mean, just a couple of days ago, being downtown in a big city, I was walking home. I went to the store to get some snacks, just some chips, and a drink. And I'm walking home, and because I have a tattoo on my face, these gang members were pressing me, right? They were like, "Hey, where you from?" And me not gang banging or being a part of a gang, I didn't really understand what was going on, and I'm new here. You know what I mean? And I'm like, "Oh, I'm from Guam." And they were like, "Where's that?" You know what I mean? I'm just the Pacific Ocean. And they were like, "Oh, well, I'm Suwoo." I'm blood. And I'm like, "Oh, well, I'm Tree. You guys have a safe night." You know what I mean? And walked off,
Yeah.
So it was just, I don't know, it's just very interesting. Yeah.
So you have to understand where they're coming from, right? Yeah.
But I didn't want any part of that. I don't know. They were being really aggressive and stuff like that, and I was just like, hey, I don't know what's going on. I hope you guys have a safe night, and peace out. You know what I mean? I'm gonna go enjoy my snacks.
Yeah. Yeah, so you have to understand their perspective, their past. Another example would be like, you know, if someone didn't come from money or they don't currently have money in the moment, right? You know, you don't want to be inconsiderate to that and being like, yo, we're going out for dinner tonight at this expensive dinner. Come on, man, come on, we're going to go for dinner.
Right.
And then you're like not even being aware or like, hang on a sec, maybe this dinner is $300. Maybe they can't afford that. So hey, bro, like, you know, I know I'm like, by the way, maybe I just pay for them because I understand where they're coming from, or maybe I can understand that. But you know, being sensitive to their financial, their past, their traumas. Another cultural one that I had to experience was their culture, right? Is, I mean, the obvious cultural differences can be like from the Asian type, very respectful, potentially a little bit more inward, timid, people might say, whereas, you know, like, you wouldn't necessarily, hey, what's going on?
Exactly, it's very respectful, very like,
yeah, just like approach it with calmness and whatever. But a cultural one that I experienced when I came out to LA was, you know, in Australia, you would meet, let's say I met a girl and I was gonna go on a date. I'd be like, hey, what's going on? Let's do dinner, let's, I'll pick you up at 7 o'clock on Friday. Cool. Sounds good. I'll be ready. Cool. Text me address text. But in Australia, the difference in culture is there's actually not as much, let's say, of a safety risk from violence or any other like you know, issues with policing versus safety. And in Australia, like, it's a fairly safe area.
Right.
So Australia is slightly more of a first world country, slightly more than America, which is still a first world country currently, but it's transitioning, I think, to be more of a third world country, which has more safety concerns. So if you live in Africa, India, Asia, parts of South America, you're going to be way more cautious. And so I wasn't understanding the culture here. So when I would ask a girl, hey, let's go out Thursday night, cool, just text me your address. And then they would be like, oh, this is like, again, girl that just, someone you just met. Like, you meet a girl, you want to ask her on a date. In Australia, it's chill, send the address, no problem. Here, I would be like, cool, yeah, so Saturday, Friday night, I'll pick you up, send me the address. And they'll be like, maybe I'll meet you somewhere. Do you want me to meet you there? And I was like, I was kind of offended. I thought, and again, in my perspective, in my culture, my thing, I was always thinking about myself. Instead of being like, hang on, there actually might be more of a risk. It's a little bit more dangerous in America. It's more dangerous in LA, certainly. And certainly some parts of Hollywood as well. And they're out of their comfort zone, maybe not even living where their family was. They're living by themselves. And it's a way more dangerous area. So I have to be considerate and understanding. I wouldn't have been offended like I am now, having not known the understanding. Because I'm like, actually, maybe it is a bit more dangerous for girls in America. Maybe I should be considered, you know what? Actually, if you like it, I can meet you there. If you like, I can pick you up. It's whatever makes you feel better. You know, I can be more accepting of that.
Exactly. Yeah, to bring it back to like the Asian culture thing. When I think they're separated by like classes. Like I feel like everything is separated by like tier. You know what I mean? So it's very. I don't think they have the. What's the word that I'm looking for? There's not too much of that like coming up and playing. You know what I mean? It's very like performative. You know, very like classes and stuff. Like they're very respectful to people that are like maybe a higher class, exactly. And so they're always like pay respect or something like that, you know. But
so they're leading with that humble respect.
That humble respect of who you are, you know what I mean. And then once they get to know you a little bit more, then that's when all that funness comes out, you know. So and it's just different cultures, I believe, you know.
For sure, yeah. So you're understanding someone's past, you're listening to them. What was their past, their stories, their upbringing, where they grow, cultural, religion, even religion sometimes. Like religious stuff could be a thing.
Right.
Now, the other part of understanding is like, when we're going to go into communication later on, how do you communicate with people? You have to like speak it like in their language, right?
Mm-hmm.
Talk about matching and mirroring people before.
Yes.
So, but the easy way to like explain it is that, let's say if I really understand what this person is coming from, like they might be way more masculine.
Right.
So they might be like very tough.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And I have to like respect that.
Mm-hmm.
But they also might be like way more feminine, like playful, like,
Right.
you know what I mean? And they just want to talk and play and whatever, let's say. And I'm trying to like logically give them explanations to give them solutions. I'm trying to mansplain to a girl that just wants to like be heard, right?
Right. Okay.
So if I'm like really paying attention to them, I'm like, you know what, this person doesn't really want the solution.
Right. They just want to be heard.
They just want to be heard. So rather than saying, oh, you should do this, you should do that,
Mm.
I'm just gonna listen to them and try to like let them know that I hear them. You know?
Right. And then if they ask, like, what would you do?
Mhm.
Then
they ask.
then give them a solution. But if they just want to tell you their problems and just have an ear to talk to, I think just know the difference.
Yeah. So understand their financial, their religion, their what's triggering them. Maybe is it fear that's triggering them, or they have an insecurity about something. Of even saying something to someone like, "Oh, you lost weight." They might have a real big insecurity about their weight. So you don't want to necessarily bring up something that they might be insecure about. I can think of so many instances that I would fucking open my mouth to some situation, guy or girl, and like trigger them, and if they just had kept my mouth shut and listened more at the beginning and really observed like, who is this person, where are they coming from? So part of human connection is really understanding the other person, their perspective. We'll talk about how to communicate on their level, how to match and mirror on their level, how to vibrate with them, how to really like get into their shoes. But yeah, once you start understanding other people, like you actually gave me, last little point was like, you told me like a lot of stories about your past, and now I feel like I'm way more connected to you. I told you about Australia, I told you about this, growing up on a ranch, and you told me about growing up on a ranch, and like getting into fights, and this, and like, even some of the racial stuff that you had growing up. Right. People didn't know if you're a boy, if you're a girl, if you're black, if you're white.
Yep. It was crazy. There was stories of like the racism one, like back in.
That's a wild story.
Yeah, that's a wild story. Yeah, it is a pretty wild story. But I don't know if we should go into. I don't know. But yeah. I think we should restart this video. I'm so sorry.
Really? Yeah, I think this video is perfect.
Really?
People just have to understand other people.
Oh yeah.
Past, their perspective, listening, and understand their culture, and that'll really help you connect with people. But it really is just like, if you understand other people, it actually helps you understand yourself.
Right. Exactly.
I hope that helped. And if I get the feedback and we need to do the video again, we can do the video again.